Hey guys, Outlawcurtis here with HoldSquare.com, and you're very lucky. You've just stumbled across our number 3 episode podcast. You can find me on the PlayStation Network at Outlawcurtis, Outlawcurtis, all one word. You can also contact me at HoldSquare.com as well as Outlawcurtis at gmail.com. Got my buddy here, my partner in crime, Brett Weiss here as well. Brett, how can people contact you?
Well, my name is Brett Weiss. You can find me at BrettWeissWords.com. That's BrettWeiss words.com. And I have a YouTube channel as well.
All right. Now, if you guys enjoy the podcast today, we hope you will. This is our 3rd episode, so we're still working out some of the kinks. But if you enjoy the podcast, please throw us a like, throw us a subscribe, and that always helps us out quite a bit. Those of you that are regular viewers to the podcast realize that we are one person short today of our little Holy Trinity, so to speak. Jordan is not here.
I was thinking more unholy Trinity, but that's
yeah,
okay.
that's probably better. She's not here this week and may not be here for the next week or two, but I feel like we'll survive. I'm not sure, but I feel like we'll be okay.
I miss her.
I know. I miss
a little
her.
bit.
I mean, yeah. Just a
bit.
touch. We don't want to overdo it. But yeah, just a touch. So
it's a little bit of a sausage fest, but that's okay.
All right, so
we'll survive.
Yeah, we'll make it somehow. But anyway, we've got a lot of stuff to cover today, so we want to get right to it. We've got tons of stuff about PlayStation. Brett's got his thing at the end, show and tell segment, which is always really cool. You had a great find this weekend. We'll talk about that in just a second. First of all, as you guys can see, I've got my Star Trek 50th anniversary shirt on. You've got your Tron shirt, which is pretty cool.
We're talking science fiction today.
Yeah,
so.
a little science fiction. So we got the tie-in. So this past weekend here in Dallas, the 50th anniversary Star Trek convention tour is touring the nation. And I had a very good friend who was really awesome and gave me an extra pass, which was really cool. So Brett and I hung out yesterday at the Star Trek convention, and that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. I had a kind of a busy weekend, so I didn't go Friday or Saturday. But Sunday was the best day anyway because William Shatner was there. And, you know, he is obviously the key actor of all the entire Star Trek series. Leonard Nimoy a close second. Sadly, we lost him here a while back.
Yeah,
but
Spock, gosh.
William Shatner is still going strong. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, he took the stage. He's as authoritative and as commanding as Captain Kirk was.
Right.
I mean, it's incredible. You missed out. So tell us what happened.
Yeah, well, we went. I met you there earlier in the morning, and I wasn't feeling great, and I got there, and it was
you weren't
really
looking
good.
too good either.
Was I not?
No.
I feel like I wasn't looking good. I
Well,
had a bad head.
you look like you always do, but it wasn't very
but
good.
just wasn't very good in
Right.
general. Okay.
Anyway,
thanks.
sorry.
Yeah, no. But I wasn't feeling great. But how can you pass up a Star Trek convention? Have you ever been to one before?
Yes, but I go to a lot of comics, science fiction, video game conventions, but it actually been since probably the 90s since that I'd been to specifically a Star Trek con. So it had been a while.
Well, I've never been to a Star Trek convention per se, and everybody kind of knows that I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and there's always kind of that friction between which is better, Star Wars or Star Trek. Personally, if I could only like one, obviously it's going to be Star Wars. Darth Vader is my spirit animal, so to speak. He's who I try to model my life after and how I do
It's all making
and,
sense now.
Right, does it? The pieces are falling into place?
Yeah, strangely enough.
Right. No, but my whole thing with Darth Vader is that, he started off good, then he made some mistakes, he went kind of evil, but then
Mistakes? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
He did murder a lot of people.
Alfred Hitler made a... Alfred Hitler?
Alfred? I don't know who Alfred
E.
I'm not
Hitler?
familiar. Yeah.
Alfred E. Hitler, the mad mascot?
Alfred E. Hitler.
Yeah, Adolf Hitler made a few mistakes too.
Right.
But,
Bruce Wayne's butler, Alfred, made a lot of mistakes, yeah.
A few mistakes.
A few mistakes. But then in the end, he, the love of his son, he comes back, he does the right thing, he destroys the Emperor, and so he had his ups and downs. I think we can call them ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I've always loved Star Wars, but I don't think you have to like one or the other. I like them both. I mean, it's outer space, it's spaceships. What's not to like?
I love both. If I had to pick one, I would pick Star Trek because I just sort of like there's more of it for one thing, and it has more of a cerebral approach. Not that you have to be brainy to like one or the other.
Cerebral?
Star Trek, that means brainy.
No, I know what the word, I'm familiar with the term.
I'm not saying Star Wars is dumb.
Right,
It's a great series. I love Star Wars. I love both. Let's just put it that way. But if I had to pick one, I would pick Star Trek because I appreciate the stories, the more cerebral approach. They're both great.
Again, I don't know how it's any more cerebral, but I know Star Wars has a little bit more of a fantasy magic aspect to it with the Force.
It's basically
almost a mage. It's a space magic.
Star Trek is science fiction. Star Wars is a space opera
or space fantasy.
Yeah,
it's kind of a mixture of space, and I get that.
What they used to call a space opera.
Right.
Yeah, back in the 50s.
Right. So we went to this thing yesterday, which is really cool. A Star Trek convention has always been on my bucket list of things I want to do before I die. And so there's that whole stereotype of people that go to Star Trek conventions, a bunch of nerds getting together and doing cosplay, which I thought the cosplay was awesome, by the way. And I met some really nice people there too. So and we saw some of my favorite characters, which is great. Riker was there. Jonathan Frakes. LeVar Burton. Geordi was there. Who
gave a really good talk.
Oh, he had a great talk. Deanna Troi was there.
Looking good.
You called the hottest looking 61-year-old you've ever seen. Is that your exact?
No, I didn't say that, Chris.
No, you. I'm quoting you for journalistic purposes.
I did not comment on the females while I was there. I did not. But yeah,
I feel like you may have said that. But
she looks great, and
Gates McFadden.
Yeah,
McFadden
looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody seems to be holding up well, except for Walter Koenig was there. Poor guy. He's starting to go down a little bit.
Is he?
He's well into his. I think he's in his 70s now.
Right?
And he's getting a little shaky, getting a little confused maybe, but he still gave a good talk, and he was sort of on top of things, but sort of not,
Well, they say that Father Time is undefeated, so we're all going to get there at some point. We're all going to have that.
And apparently he had a triple bypass or something, a while back. That sort of. But William Shatner is incredible.
Yeah, tell me about Shatner, because I wanted to be there for the 4:00, and I just wasn't feeling great. I knew you were going to stay, so you could kind of tell me about it during the podcast. So Captain Kirk is one of my idols. I mean, the way he does things, the way he always commands things, and that kind of edge to him, that attitude to him, has always been something that obviously is appealing to millions of people.
Yeah, he's basically a space cowboy.
Right.
And to me, just an aside, the three greatest Star Trek characters of all time are obviously Kirk and Spock, either 1 and 2 or tied for 1.
Yeah,
or whatever.
1A, 1B.
However you want to say it. And then Data. I think Data from The Next Generation is awesome. But anyway,
you know what? Let me say one thing about Data before we go on to Shatner, because LeVar Burton gave a great talk. LeVar Burton was awesome. I've always liked Geordi. I loved reading Rainbow as a kid. So if you liked reading Rainbow, you saw his rise and going through that. And he was talking about, one of the people in the audience asked him, what did you ever have any issues with the writers? Did they ever do anything with the character you didn't like? Did you ever go back and forth with him? And he kind of laughed, and you could tell he really had something on his mind. And he was like, yeah, there was one thing I always went back and forth with. He's like, I couldn't understand why this guy who was a chief engineer, my character, could never get it on with the ladies. He was just so horrible and stumbled all over himself. He couldn't. He's like, I was smooth. I could have been smooth, but they never gave me that chance. And he said everyone on that starship got laid, basically. He said,
everyone but
Riker,
him.
Picard, he said even the android got laid. He is fully functioning,
functional.
Right?
Yeah, and he said
everyone except him got some.
It was stereotypical, an engineer who's so obsessed with the ship and technology and everything couldn't possibly relate to a female. So
Yeah, couldn't do both. How could you possibly do that? So that was a crowd pleaser. That was really funny.
Yeah, I grew up. I mean, when I was a kid, we watched Roots first run on television. Over 4 nights or whatever, and that really impacted me as a kid. Just to see. I mean, it was a dramatization. It's fiction, but it's based on reality, and it really gave me a sort of a glimpse into just how awful slavery was. So but LeVar Burton's incredible, great actor, and he had to wear that basically an oil filter fram on his face, which he hated. He mentioned that he hated wearing that.
And then finally he told him with the movies, he's like, okay, we got to get rid of this.
Take this off.
We're far enough in the future. We got the technology.
Yeah, it was time to come off.
This.
It's an iconic thing, but it was time to come off for the movies.
Right.
But anyway, so he was awesome, but Shatner came out. You had to go home because you were feeling bad, and I was hoping you could come back.
Yeah,
but you just were feeling
wanted
worse.
to. Right, I wanted to.
Shatner came out yesterday afternoon at 4, and just from the minute he got on stage, he just commanded. I mean, he had everybody at rapt attention. Even if he would have said nothing and just stood up there, everybody would have just
just
been
like
up there. We're not worthy.
Right, exactly.
But he was funny. He was energetic. He was charming. He was okay. the moderator, the guy who introduced him, basically asked him, "So what is it?" I said, "You're in your mid-80s. You look good. You sound good. You're energetic. You're moving around well. What's your secret?" And so I'm expecting him to say, "Well, I work out. He likes horses. I ride my horses. I eat well." He started feigning a heart attack. He goes, like Elizabeth, basically like Fred Sanford. He starts having a heart attack. But he did that. He was funny throughout. But he also got really philosophical. He talked about, now there's a theory in science that there are parallel universes, and he talked about that. He said, "Is time travel possible?" All these other things, and he said, science fiction, what happens after we die? Nobody knows. Where are your loved ones? Are they anywhere? Are they, He talked all about that and said science fiction tries to, in some roundabout way, answer these kinds of questions. Sure. So he got serious, but somebody asked him, he was serious in turn, but he was also just funny throughout. Somebody asked him if he was a collector. Said, so many people collect Star Trek, relics, all these different things. Do you collect anything? Are you a collector? And he goes, "Yeah, I collect skin growths." So he's poking fun at it at his age a little bit. Right. And he also talked about filming love scenes. And he said, they talked about the kiss with Uhura, which was one of the early,
groundbreaking.
Multiracial, biracial.
Isn't that the very first ever biracial kiss on television, or it's
not
one of the
technically? Technically, you could say ones. Lucy and Ricky because he was Cuban.
Right, exactly.
Technically,
I
but as far as an African American,
Caucasian,
it's the first one in American television, I believe. But
I had read that somewhere.
In Europe, there was one that predated that, and I don't remember what it is.
Well, Europe,
but
they're always
they're
80 years ahead of us anyway. So
those liberals, no,
they live in the future there.
But
anyway,
so that was groundbreaking. Gene Roddenberry was. I mean, he was such a humanist. He was so on top of things. He liked to, Star Trek creator. Obviously, he liked to, go up on the edge of societal norms, So they talked about the kiss with Uhura, and then that sort of led to a conversation about love scenes on film. And Shatner said, he's talking about they're nowhere near as romantic or as fun as you might think they would be. He had a love scene with Angie Dickinson, and just talked about it was uncomfortable, and the lights are on you, and
there's 50 people in the room, and they're all watching.
It gets warm, and you start sweating, not in a good way.
Yeah, no,
and it starts to smell.
Right.
He said it's just it's not as good as you might.
As you might think.
Anyway, so he had a lot of funny stories. One thing, back in the days of the 70s and 80s comic book conventions and science fiction conventions, one of the big things was the Star Trek bloopers. Before most people had video in their home,
right?
People would go to conventions to see the Star Trek blooper reel. That was one of the most popular things. Well, he talked about that. He said those were originally created to show at basically what were company Christmas parties for the cast. And so they got a lot of laughs out of that. Well, somebody took those and produced them and sold them. And that really irritated the cast because they didn't get any money for it. So it was just pirated, basically, I guess. And
but he was. I could just imagine he was awesome. Did you get some pictures and stuff? Did you get some good pictures and stuff?
See, that's one thing. Back in the day,
that's what I was there for, right? You
were supposed to take the.
I'm
the
my
wingman,
right? I'm the
camera was. Anyway, I had some other. I did not get any pictures of Shatner. I had to leave right after it was over, and even though I'm with press and have the markings and everything, had the sticker with press and everything, I had to sit at the back, which is right. And let me talk about this just for a second.
Sure.
Back in the day, before the internet and everything, if you were with the press, you were with radio or TV or newspaper,
right,
or magazines,
right,
and you would be guaranteed a place near the front.
Oh, front row.
Yeah. They would have it marked out.
Right.
There would be the press and then VIPs. Right. Well, nowadays with blogging and YouTube and all this other stuff, websites
like in the back.
They clump a lot of places. Not everybody. Some know it, but places like most conventions like this lump everybody together. Even though I write for like a world-class national newspaper.
Yeah, exactly.
They lump everybody at the back, and so I mean that's okay. I got in free, so
I don't really understand the mentality of it.
They said don't approach the stage to get a picture and everything. So. My press pass got me in, but it really wasn't an advantage other than just getting in for free.
And if I'm planning a convention like that, I'm wanting press to cover it, take pictures, write about it, and give me as much publicity.
Right. And they did reach out to me beforehand, and I could interview a celebrity beforehand and all that kind of stuff. So I'm still, in the loop that way.
You got some.
But as far as when you're there, you're basically treated just like anyways. But first world problems.
Right. No, it's definitely first world problems.
There was one thing I was disappointed with at the convention. It was a great con. Everybody was nice. Costumes were excellent. Everybody was cool. Met up with some friends.
Yeah, I got some good pictures.
Met some new people.
Those are up on the website, by the way. My scrapbook from the convention, so you can see that. And a great Captain Pike. I mean,
incredible.
An epic Captain Pike. So you could look at that on the website.
From the Star Trek episode The Menagerie, which they incorporated scenes from The Cage, the original pilot that was unsold, et cetera, et cetera. Long story back in Star Trek in production. Anyway, he was in the futuristic wheelchair-looking thing with the lights beeping and his face scarred.
He looked exactly like him. Exactly like him in the.
But anyway, the one disappointment with the Star Trek convention was the vendors' room. It was small, and there was hardly any vintage merchandise. No 60s merchandise. Hardly any 70s memorabilia, nothing. No vintage.
Right.
There were just T-shirts and photos and modern tchotchkes and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
There's cool stuff because it's Star Trek, but except for one booth, and at this one booth, I made an incredible video game magazine find.
And we'll talk about
that at the end of the podcast. I'll show you what I found, and mind blown. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. I can't wait for you to show it.
It was a fun day at the TrekCon.
Right.
Yeah.
And it got us talking while we were sitting there talking, kind of to tie it back into video games too. We were talking there as we were waiting for Levar Burton to get up, and I just mentioned how with the franchises like Star Trek and Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica and all these amazing franchises, sci-fi, there really has not been that many good franchised, licensed video games like that. There's been one or two, and of course in the last few months we had Star Wars Battlefront come out, which has gotten some great reviews, but it's still got its detractors and stuff. I love the game, but just in general, and you've got a few of your kind of favorites and stuff sitting out here that are Star Wars, Star Trek related.
Star Wars has a relatively good history, probably more than any other science fiction movie property. Star Wars has a good history. You've got The Empire Strikes Back on the Atari 2600, which was excellent, where you're flying around shooting walkers. You've got Star Wars Arcade from 1983, which is just a phenomenal 3D game with full-color vector graphics, and it's an attack on the Death Star.
Right.
Excellent
I remember that
game. I'm not a big fan of the Lego Star Wars games because that's just not my type of game.
I like some of the Lego Star Wars games.
And they're a little heavy, for me, but they're quality games.
And they're platforming.
And my son loves them, and they're obviously very quality games.
And they've got an interesting sense of humor to them too.
Yeah,
they kind of poke fun at
tons of characters.
Yeah, they poke fun at themselves. They don't take it too seriously.
They're
which
obviously
is kind of cool.
well done.
They're very well done.
And I'm not much of an RPG fan, but I hear the Knights of the Old Republic games are pretty good.
I've heard that as well. I have not played Knights of the Old Republic, but it does get some pretty good reviews. But games like Star Wars and Star Trek seem like they would lend themselves to really great RPGs. I mean, these expansive worlds with dozens of planets and different characters, and really the game that's done that the best, if you were to, in my opinion, if you were to look over the last 10, 12 years, has got to be Mass Effect. The Mass Effect series, you're talking Game of the Year type of.
So it basically should be a Star Wars property.
If it was a Star Wars property, then it's all over with. But and then it sets itself up so well for a movie. I could just totally see Mass Effect movie, and then of course later this year Mass Effect Andromeda comes out. Now Mass Effect, as you know, started on Xbox. It was an Xbox exclusive, and then with Mass Effect 2, then it went over to multi-console. And now they're all developed for all consoles. But I don't know how familiar you are with platinum trophies or not. But on Xbox, you've got the achievement system.
Right, yeah.
Right? And then it's called trophies on PlayStation.
Yeah, sure.
And so to get a platinum trophy, you essentially have to earn every achievement in a game. And usually there's between 50 and 100, depending on the game. And I don't have a lot of platinum trophies because I'm not a trophy grinder like that. I don't have
I'm
to
not
have
either.
those.
I mean, I've got an Xbox 360, and I basically play the game for fun and then to try to beat it if that's applicable.
Now what I will do is if I see that I've got like 96%
might
on
as
this
well
game,
go for it.
I might as well go for it.
And
and so to give you an idea, I've only got 6 platinum trophies. One of them is Mass Effect 2. And it's one of my favorite games of all time. Just amazing story, gameplay, the whole thing. The universe is just so expansive and awesome. And then one of my other ones is a Ratchet and Clank game, which we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. But I don't have a ton of platinums, and that kind of shows that I spent a lot of time on that game. That Mass Effect series is, to me, probably the best space-based science fiction game series there ever has been.
Well, getting back to Star Wars a little bit, some of the best Star Wars games, there was a trilogy on the Super Nintendo beginning with Super Star Wars, and then Super The Empire Strikes Back.
See, several of these I didn't
and
play
Super
on,
Return of the Jedi.
I didn't play on NES. I didn't play either of these on
Super
NES.
Super NES.
Oh, this is on S. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not play these on Super NES.
Yeah, those are excellent. They're basically kind of platform, kind of shooters where you just run through, you know, a lot of platforming, a lot of shooting. Excellent music.
But it's all 2D stuff.
Yeah,
it's all,
yeah.
It's all side
which is what I like.
Yeah,
yeah.
right. No,
right.
yeah.
Excellent games. For the Sega 32X, you've got Star Wars Arcade, which is an excellent adaptation of the arcade game, and actually brings in, you know, raster graphics, raster scan graphics. So you've got, you know, updated for the console. And some of my other, I like T2, the arcade game for the Genesis. It's like a target shooting game.
Right.
And then Universal Soldier is surprisingly good. It's
Is
a
it?
platform shooter that's, you know, Contra fans would like. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I love Contra and Metal Slug and stuff like that.
Right.
So.
Now, what's interesting, one of my favorite science fiction or favorite Star Trek games is actually, okay, the Genesis, Super Nintendo, NES, they've had some decent tries at Star Trek games.
Right.
You know, they'll go down to planets, they'll have some space combat, but they're just okay. But one of my favorite Star Trek games, see it here, is for the Game Boy. The original Game Boy has a Star Trek game that's actually it's actually a side-scrolling shooter.
Right.
It's Star Trek: The 25th Anniversary, and it's different than the NES. So, you know, 25 years ago, you know, because it's the 50th anniversary now.
Right,
so that's
yeah.
the 25th anniversary. The Game Boy version is a side-scrolling shooter, and it has some, yeah, don't do that. It has some adventure elements to it, but it's basically a side-scrolling shooter.
Right.
And it's a lot different than the NES version, which is more of like an adventure game with RPG elements.
Right.
But that's one of my favorite Star Trek games.
You know, kind of tying this back all in with the PlayStation here. We're going to talk about the PlayStation firmware update in a second, but you know, we've kind of, I think with the current generation, the new generation, PlayStation 4 and so forth, we've crossed a threshold. We've crossed a line where now the technology is caught up to in such a degree that to give you an idea, Star Wars Battlefront is to me the first game, and that was developed by DICE. It came out just at the end of last year. It's the first time you ever get into a Star Wars game, and it's the graphic fidelity is so good, the game design is so good, you literally feel like you are playing the movie. You feel like you are now in Empire Strikes Back. It's just and we just haven't we haven't gotten to that point until recently where and that's part of what, you know, Ratchet and Clank is dealing with now. You feel like you're playing a Pixar movie because of where the technology has gotten to and stuff. They've just got to work on some of the fine-tuning of the game and stuff. But Star Wars Battlefront, the current one, is really, really good. It's a solid game, and it really takes good advantage of the PS4 architecture. So
before we go transition to the next topic, I want to touch on Tron real quick.
Sure.
Obviously, Tron came out. The movie, Disney movie, came out in 1982. It was development started in the late 70s, and it was originally going to be an animated film. But with the advances in computer technology, they went ahead and, you know, did computer graphics and everything, and just made a live-action movie. Came out in 1982, and then the reason I bring it up, because my favorite science fiction movie adaptation, gaming-wise, of all time, is the original Tron arcade game, which came out a little later in 1982, and which was based on the movie.
Right.
Had the light cycles and, you know, the whole works.
It was big time, man.
Great game, and interestingly enough, Tron 2.0 killer app for the Game Boy Advance has Tron, the arcade game, built in.
Right.
So it's got featuring Disc of Tron and the Tron Classic arcade game.
Oh, wow.
And so with the Game Boy Advance adapter, you put under your, it's called the Game Boy Player. You put that under your GameCube, and you can play Game Boy Advance games on the big screen.
Oh, wow.
Through your GameCube. And so you put this into the Game Boy Player, and you can play Tron, the arcade game, on your GameCube on a big TV.
I didn't know
it's
they
pretty
had
cool.
that kind of functionality. Yeah, that's
Game
awesome.
Boy Player, and what it is, it's sort of the next iteration of. Originally, they had the Super Game Boy for the Super Nintendo. You can plug that into your Super Nintendo and play original Game Boy games on it.
Right, right.
Which is how I play Star Trek. So you've got you know, a side-scrolling shooter on a bigger screen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so yeah, I did a trivia thing one time on my Facebook page. You know, I'm playing Tron on the GameCube, and it was never released for the GameCube. and this isn't emulation, like it's not a flash card or anything.
Right.
What am I doing?
How am I doing
so
it? Yeah.
Had some guesses. Somebody said magic. And then, a GameCube / Game Boy Advance fan figured it out. It was kind of fun. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Well, kind of talking about some other things that have happened this week. Last week the PlayStation had a huge update, which has added a lot of features and functions that PlayStation gamers have been wanting for quite some time. Version 3.5 came out, and just kind of looking over the list of things you can do now, they finally have fixed some of the things that people have been wanting to do. And there are several on here that I'm really excited about. First of all, the idea that you can now appear offline, which is great, because so many times late at night I'll get like party invitations or gaming invitations on my PS4, and my PlayStation is on, and maybe I'm downloading something, or what I normally do is I turn on Netflix and I go to sleep with Netflix on, and it appears that I'm online. And now with this functionality, and then sometimes people just want to talk to me about nonsense.
Right.
And I'm like, I wish I could play and appear like I wasn't online. But anyway, so it's a nice feature from a privacy standpoint, so you can still play online and
your mom won't know how many video games you're playing, how many hours you're spending online.
Exactly.
You know what's interesting is back in the 80s, there was legitimate panic that kids were spending anywhere from between 2 and 4 hours in front of a screen per day. Can you imagine how much parents would love that now?
Nothing, man.
That's enough to play for one gaming session.
I was talking to a friend of mine in the Reapers named Merrick, and he had pulled an all-nighter. I played with him last night when he was awake. It was really late at night. Mm-hmm. But then I logged on a little bit for a few minutes this morning, and he had still been up all throughout the night. And was
I used to do stuff like that.
Yeah,
at 9:30 and I'm yawning.
No, can't do that anymore. So I'm actually I'm going to go to the Dark Souls launch tonight, midnight. So I'm going to have to grab a little nap or something before then. I can't just stay up.
I still pull the occasional all-nighter, but it's not video games.
Do I even?
No.
We'll just
next.
Right. Yeah. We'll put that on the Blu-ray, the extended scenes. But anyway, so not only can you do that now, but you can also create user events, which is really cool. You can create an event in PlayStation. You can invite all your friends. You set a date and a time. You even list a game and say, hey, you want to play with me at this time? We're going to have this tournament. We're going to have this game, which is really, really cool. One of the other features too that's really nice, and this is, there's things like friend notifications online that is great, seeing when your friends are coming online, being notified of that, which you could do on the PS3, but for some reason it wasn't on PS4 at launch. But one of the really big ones is remote play now. That's one that a lot of people are excited about. So now remote play is active for PCs and for Mac. So if you're out of town...
What about Xbox? That'd be crazy, wouldn't it?
I know. Right, exactly. So that would be weird if you could remote play your PlayStation on an Xbox.
Right.
Yeah, that.
Well, back in the day,
sense.
You could plug an adapter into your ColecoVision to play Atari 2600 games. You could plug an adapter into your, they had things like that.
Really?
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
ColecoVision expansion module. Plug it into your ColecoVision. And Atari sued, but they lost.
I feel pretty confident that Sony and Microsoft will never get together and have a joint. Right. I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. But anyway, so what you can basically do now is if you're out of town or you're something like that, you've got your laptop with you, but you don't, your PC, your PS4 is back at home plugged in. Right. You can now, as long as you have a controller, you got to have a DualShock with you that you can plug in. Doesn't have mouse and keyboard support, but you take your controller with you and you can plug it into your laptop or your PC, and you can
That's very cool.
play Dark Souls or something. So it's just another level of functionality and stuff. That
and the controller basically has the memory of your games backed up in it.
No, it's all
cloud based.
Cloud. Yeah,
it's all cloud based. See,
that's
how old I am. I have to think.
No, we don't do memory cards anymore. We don't do. Yeah, it's magic, right?
Steam.
Yeah, actually,
Steam cleaning?
There's a spell that's cast over it that they enchant it. So. Anyway, speaking of PS4, we got to talk about, this is a huge week. Today's April 11th. We didn't mention that at the beginning. I should have. Today's April 11th. This week, two of the biggest games of the year are coming out that so many people, not just PlayStation gamers, but gamers in general, looking forward to. First of all, Dark Souls 3, which we touched on a little bit in the last couple of weeks. Comes out tonight at midnight. I will be playing at 12:01 when it comes out and broadcasting live.
Get alive! Get alive!
On my Twitch channel, I will be broadcasting it tonight. That's one of the 2 or 3 games I'll be playing at midnight this year. Uncharted 4 is one of the other ones. 1 or 2 others maybe, but for me to play it at midnight, it's got to be a pretty big deal. And so the Dark Souls franchise is so great. It started with Demon Souls, and then the two Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2. Then kind of the spiritual successor of that is Bloodborne, which a lot of people have been loving on PS4. And now with Dark Souls 3, it's that fantasy medieval type of battle. But, you know, the big thing about Dark Souls is the difficulty level. And I think more people rage quit per capita with Dark Souls games than any other game franchise.
It's the NES days all over again.
It is. It really is. It really does call back to some old school gaming because when you play Dark Souls, there are no signs pointing you places. There's no prompts. There's no arrows. There's no go this way. You just basically go, and you know, and man, just don't go into dark rooms. Get a torch out, for goodness sakes, because you go in there and it's all dimly lit. It's all very difficult. The enemies hit very hard, and I've told this story, and I've told it to other people in the Reapers before, but Demon Souls is the first game that I ever literally rage quit, and I ejected it out of my PS3, the disc, and I had it in my hand to throw it like a frisbee because I was so ticked off. I could not get past level 1 on this game. Later I found out I continually went the wrong direction and ran into this enemy that it was way too over-leveled for me. And then finally I found out, you just go the other way and don't beat your head against this wall 80 times in a row. So, but I kept it, and I'm glad I did because I stuck through it. And once you get through that learning curve and you learn that you have to really respect the game and not take it so lightly, you gotta focus, you gotta learn how to do things. It's really an amazing game. They have some of the best boss battles, some of those creative level design, multi-tiered levels in swamps and forests and all kinds of stuff. And it's a beautiful, beautiful game. From Software does an amazing job on the series. So,
cool. Sounds good.
And the other one is Ratchet and Clank. Now that's one that you obviously PS2,
yeah, I had the
PS3.
original one came out in 2002, and I picked it up. It's a cool game, the original Ratchet and Clank.
Now Insomniac is billing this as the game based on the movie based on the game,
right?
Because obviously Ratchet and Clank since 2002 has been a big PlayStation exclusive series. And again, they've always tried to give you that feeling. And we sat down just a minute ago, and I played a little bit on your PS2. The original Ratchet and Clank, just to kind of see how it held up.
And the original PS2, big fat PS2 with the fan. And
yeah, exactly, with the fan and stuff.
That's my original one that I bought. You know, the first usually I don't usually buy a console when it first comes out.
Right.
I usually wait for the first price break. I have too much of my dad in me where I just can't pay full retail. After the first price break on the PS2, I don't even remember when that was or what it was, but I picked up a PS2, the fatty.
Right.
And that's the same one, and I've played the hell out of that thing.
Right. Well, it's an amazing series, and as far as platformers go, it's about as good as it gets. And again, we've gotten to that point, and I've seen some videos of the gameplay, and the reviews of Ratchet and Clank are just phenomenal. They're all over 9 for the most part on most of the sites that I consider reputable. And for the first time ever with the technology now, it really looks like you can't differentiate between the footage of the game and the trailer of the movie. You really can't you really feel like you're playing the movie, and it's just getting great reviews, and I know a ton of Reapers are going to be into it, especially being that it is one of those PS4 standbys. It's one of those PlayStation standbys like Uncharted and God of War.
Every console needs a franchises like that.
Yeah. Little Big Planet, Ratchet and Clank, all those kind of real console sellers. So that's going to be taking up a lot of my time too in the next couple of weeks. So I need to do this. I need to bring over my PlayStation one day or something and let you.
I've got to go. I'll see y'all later.
You know, you've already used that.
Oh, okay.
You need new material. You need
third episode, and I'm out of material.
Yeah, you're already out of material. We're 3 things into this deal, but
sorry.
Anyway, so all right, so we've kind of talked about that. We're going to talk about something here in a second, which I'm pretty excited about. Now, just like any internet gaming community, and really any internet forum community in general, whether it's a gaming community, whether it's a gun collectors community, whether it's a stamp collecting community, whatever, nowadays they pretty much all accept, donations and stuff. If you like it, if you get something out of it,
whether it's Patreon or whatever.
Yeah, whether it's Patreon or PayPal or whatever, and it's not an obligation, it's not a requirement. It's like, hey, I love this place, I want it to keep going, and I'm willing to pitch in $10 or
Right.
whatever. So, and we accepted donations for years and stuff like that, and we always try to put it back into, you know, the website and pay
Right.
for the website and software and equipment for podcasts.
Just to be
and all
clear,
this
the
different
HoldSquare
stuff.
community has gone on way longer than this podcast. Just for people who aren't.
For those
Right.
that aren't members of HoldSquare.com and our community is over 6 years old. We just celebrated our 6-year anniversary in March. And so we've been around a long time. Now, our podcast has just started in the last few weeks, but we've been around a long time. And so we were talking about a year ago, or a little under a year ago, I actually stopped taking donations because I wanted to kind of restructure some things from a business standpoint and a legal standpoint. So I just kind of shut that off altogether. And, you know, before that, we had kind of taken some money and used it and wanted to use it for, like, you know, cameras and stuff like that. Ended up having to use some of that for some of this restructuring in our new website we're building.
Jordan would be asleep
so
by now.
She would totally be asleep.
I'm starting to nod off.
No, you're starting to nod off too. So, but the bottom line is we re-added the donation button a couple of weeks ago because people have been asking about it, saying, hey, I
Right.
want to help out. I want to do. And so
cool.
I was trying to think of a creative thing, a fun thing that we could have a fundraiser, raise some money for the website so that we could pay for our new website that's rolling out in a few weeks and buy some software, maybe buy another microphone or two like everybody wants to say, and have some contests and other stuff. So what we decided to do is have a fundraiser that's kind of a raffle. So basically, instead of it just being a donation, you're going to be buying raffle tickets if you so desire. And basically, they're going to be in $10 increments. So if you want to send $10 and say, hey, this is for one raffle ticket, you can do that, or you can buy 10 raffle tickets for $100. So in $10 increments, you'll go on our website. We have a PayPal button if you want to participate. And every single person that buys a raffle ticket, and all those raffle tickets get you one entry into our contest. And what we're going to do is we're going to give away t-shirts. We're going to give away PSN cards. We're going to give away all kinds of different things. Now this is very rare, just so you know. I have a Gearbox. You're not going to know what this is. I have a Gearbox Butt Stallion t-shirt. Now, anybody that's ever played Borderlands knows exactly what I'm talking about. I got this as a gift from Jeff at Gearbox. It's about one of the characters in one of the Borderlands games. And instead of keeping it for myself, I've just kind of kept it off to the side, and I'm going to give that away as well. So we're going to give away lots of different cool things. And I know you're going to throw in some things, too, to give away.
Yeah, there'll be some, you know, expensive items, rare items, and there's just going to be some commonplace items that are just fun.
Stuff,
Instead of just your money going away, you'll get a little something.
Yeah, right.
know.
So we're gonna have probably 8 to 10 winners that we're gonna draw names. We'll draw names right here on the podcast. And then just as an added little thing, okay, and this, you can go on our website right now. If you are a member, you're eligible to vote. The whole thing is we're going to set a community goal. And if we reach this community goal, and what we're setting it at now is $1,500. So if we take in a total of $1,500 in this month-long contest, then you basically are purchasing my humiliation, is essentially what you're doing. So the ideas I've gotten so far are that I have to shave my head during the podcast.
Yikes.
Which I love my hair. I don't like my hair being touched.
Did anybody ever tell you you look like that guy in Futurama, the main character? Not Bender,
No.
but the human.
No,
I can't remember his name. Okay.
No.
Me neither.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Good. Thank you. Let's see. The other ones were one was shaving my head. One was dyeing my hair pink and doing a podcast with the pink hair. Okay, I can handle that. Now, going to work, I'm going to have to re-dye because I'm not going to go into into work in that way. One person had the idea of me dressing in drag as in cosplay as like Mad Moxie or Tiny Tina from the Borderlands series and doing a podcast in so we could have some moments here. So I got a sense of humor. Okay,
Go with Samus.
If we bring in Samus, for Metroid, that's what I need to do. Totally
with the costume on.
Right? No, with the mask,
fully
and
armored
everything.
up.
Yeah,
not the
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll have 4 or 5 options, and I will go with whatever the community votes on.
Right.
I'll do it. And so if we hit that community goal, I will do it. And Jordan will probably want to be holding the shears or.
So when people buy
whatever,
these raffle tickets, they do so through the website.
Yeah, basically.
And what does that get them? What does a $10 raffle ticket get them?
$10 gets them one entry into the fishbowl. We're going to have a fishbowl right here. We're going to put every single ticket in there. We're going to put every single name in there. If you buy 1 ticket, we'll put your 1 ticket in there. If you buy 20 tickets, we'll put your 20 tickets in there.
Right.
And we will pull it out right here during the broadcast, and we will announce the winners and tell you what you get. And what are some other things you're wanting to?
Here's some of the smaller items that are just commonplace, but still cool.
Yeah, right.
Like the Call of Duty Black Ops long sleeve T-shirt. Can you see that?
Why? I need this.
That's cool, huh?
I love Black Ops Zombies.
Buy your raffle tickets.
Okay, I will. I'll buy a raffle ticket.
Got a couple of these T-shirts. Oops.
Medal of Honor T-shirts. Yeah. Nice.
Very cool. And some people don't like this movie. I happen to like it. Final Fantasy Spirits Within.
I know a lot of people that like it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Kind of fits the PlayStation
cool. Yeah, it's
theme.
unopened. It's unopened.
The factory sealed special edition.
Right.
And just for fun and to fit the theme of today's episode, a couple of probably cheesy William Shatner DVDs, factory sealed, but probably a lot of fun too.
Factory sealed, William Shatner, okay.
And
good.
Of course, the Star Trek Compendium.
Oh, very nice.
Everything you wanted to know about the original series, but we're afraid to ask.
Afraid to ask, yeah, exactly.
So awesome. things like that.
Okay, cool. And maybe this just came to me right now. You're going to do your reveal right now, so maybe one of these might need to get. Maybe
we'll discuss that after.
We'll talk off camera. That's not an open discussion. So tell what have you got in your show and tell segment today?
Before I get to the big find I made at the Star Trek convention, just a little background. As a kid growing up, I was a huge reader. Always went to the library, went to the used bookstores, loved to read, loved reference books and all that kind of stuff. And when I discovered books about video games, in the library and things, awesome. And then in the early 80s, magazines started appearing on the shelves, like at bookstores and supermarkets. Now, at bookstores and convenience stores, I would start reading the magazine, and they'd say, "Son, this ain't no library." That's how they did it back in the day.
Right.
It's not like today where you could just go to Barnes & Noble and
just flip through it and stand
get
there for
coffee
2 hours.
and sit on the couch, and read everything they have. Not back then.
No.
Yeah, it was very.
You gonna buy something or what?
But at grocery stores, they didn't care.
Right.
And so I would ride my bike to Safeway or whatever, Piggly Wiggly, grocery stores back then.
Piggly Wiggly. Now that's
Piggly
retro.
Wiggly
That's vintage. That's
sold
old school.
Kenner action figure, Star Wars action figures, the original line.
Right.
You'd go to Piggly Wiggly and they would just be rows of them.
Unbelievable.
And so at Piggly, whatever, I would stand there at the magazine racks and read, stand there for a couple hours and just read every video game magazine they had.
Right.
I would buy what I could because I loved to have them.
Sure.
But Electronic Games magazine was a big one. Joystick Magazine, Electronic Fun with Computers and Games, et cetera, et cetera. I bought some, but I had a stack of them, and I just read them to tatters and threw them away years ago.
Right.
Before I get to the big reveal, I want to show you one magazine that's brand new that just came out.
Okay.
It's called Little Player Magazine. It's published by an acquaintance of mine named Martin Alessi, big gaming advocate and member of the community. And as you can see by the title, really cool.
This for kids.
Yeah, it's for kids. They only cover like the E-rated games, and E10 plus.
Star Wars, Lego Star Wars, Little Big Planet, all that kind of stuff.
It's got a cover feature on Star Fox Zero.
Star Fox, yeah.
Yeah, but they cover PS4, Xbox One, and Wii U, so it's good. And like this issue has even a, they'll go retro at times. There's a thing on Load Runner for the NES, so it's nicely illustrated throughout, and it's got, it doesn't talk down to the reader, but it has, simple articles with large text.
Right.
And even some of it's written by kids, like some of the little reviews and things. But it also has, of course, adult contributors. It's well written, very nicely done. Just Google Little Player Video Game Magazine, and you'll find it for sale online.
Cool.
So, thanks to Martin Alessi for the review copy. Very cool. Now for the big reveal.
We just don't have a lot of good video game magazines anymore. They all go out of business.
Yeah, everything went online. There is one. Retro Magazine is good. That's a newer. It's on issue 11 is about to come out. Retro Magazine, and it's in the United States. Retro Gamer Magazine is in the UK, and it's a really good retro magazine.
Right.
But so much of the stuff has just gone online or digital.
Well, being a big GameStop, I'm a GameStop customer and stuff. A Game Informer, I get that, and Game Informer seems to still be going.
Some people diss Game Informer because it's corporate, but it's a great magazine. There's really in-depth articles. As a matter of fact,
tons of information.
If you read Game Informer now and then read the old issues from the 90s, it's better now because they had to go more in depth because you can get poorly written articles online.
Oh yeah.
You can get bits of information online.
Right.
But the Game Informer magazine goes in depth.
Yeah, if you're going to get people to read it, you got to offer them something they can't get somewhere else.
Really good stuff.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ben Reeves, a good friend of mine that's on the staff of Game Informer. Really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, before I get to my magazine find at the Star Trek convention, I found there was an incredible video game find at the Star Trek con. I walk up to this table. This guy has just some weird retro stuff that really didn't relate to Star Trek. Gremlins, Mr. T. He had some kind of outdated computer software, just some odds and ends. And I see a Microvision game. I thought, well, that's interesting. And it's actually Star Trek, so it made a little bit of sense.
Right.
But something you'll rarely see is a factory-sealed Microvision game.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't know, because when you do see these, the Microvision came out in 1979, a decade before the Game Boy.
Right.
It was the first portable game console that had replaceable cartridges.
Right.
And one of the games was Star Trek Phaser Strike.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy had one on the table, factory sealed. You'll see the cardboard backing.
Right.
A lot of people don't even know these exist. The cardboard, because you just see the box. Usually when you do see them boxed, but it came packaged like this with the cardboard backing.
That is awesome.
One on the table, and the price was right, so I bought it.
Right.
And then I'm just kind of talking to the guy. He brings out another one and sets it on the table. I'll take that one too.
Yeah. How many do you have?
Yeah. How many do you have? He had several.
So you got stacks of these things.
So I bought them all. Now, I do gaming conventions, and I like to have, new and different things on sale, cool stuff on sale. I mainly do game conventions.
Does your wife just shake your head at you sometimes when you come home and you have an armful of this and she's just like, what is this?
But then when she sees the bank account, because of the Square
on the back end, that's
the Square transactions that fill up the bank account, she's like, okay, I get it.
Okay, now it all makes sense. Okay, good.
I do gaming conventions to promote the books I write.
Right.
One side of the table will be the books I write. Meet author Brett Weiss, like that's exciting or something. But it's to sell books and autograph books.
Like who? Meet who?
Yeah, it's not entertaining. It's not. I'm not interesting to meet at all. Trust me. But anyway, that's what you're supposed to say as an author. So
right. Yes.
Autograph is free. Pay for the book. Anyway,
Right.
Someday when I'm famous, maybe I'll charge a quarter for an autograph.
Right. Exactly.
Comic book writers have started charging for autographs.
Comic book writers have?
Yeah. Well, it's a long story, but anyway, yeah, $1 per comic. Yeah, long story.
I'd pay $1. Some of the guys at the Star Trek convention were like $40.
Oh, actors. See, in the 80s and 70s, most autographs were free, or you might buy a $5 glossy and get a free autograph.
Now it's like a whole revenue stream
insane,
for them.
Yeah,
it's like
and forever it was $10. Like late 80s, 90s, it was $10 for years.
Deal.
Now, and then it jumped to $40 for a few years, and then $40 is kind of the standard now. And then your big shots like Shatner, Mark Hamill might get $100. So yeah, it's gotten crazy. So anyway, I found a stack of these Microvision Star Trek games. Very rare.
That is awesome.
Now, just as cool, and maybe even a little bit cooler, is I found a stack of Joystick magazines. Now, Joystick Magazine was inspired by Electronic Games Magazine, which was the first fully dedicated all video game magazine. It was Electronic Games, started by Bill Kunkel, Joyce Worley, and Arnie Katz in the early 80s. And that had spun off for a column they did for a computer magazine. Anyway, Electronic Games. Well, Joystick was one of the magazines that was inspired by Electronic Games.
Right.
And Joystick took a little different slant. They were heavy on strategy and tips long before YouTube, or you could just find everything on GameFAQs.com or whatever. They had elaborate tips, strategies, and all that.
And so you've stumbled across basically
an issue of Joystick.
An issue. Look at this. What the heck, man? Who's walking around with this kind of stuff back in a box somewhere?
This was a warehouse find. I talked to the vendor for a while. This is a warehouse find. Now, this is just 4 different issues. There's a stack of each issue. These are uncirculated, unread until now.
It looks like.
Thank you.
This looks like it. Am I devaluing it by looking at it? I don't even.
Sweating all over.
I don't even want to touch this.
Don't look at it.
I mean, December 1982.
Well, see, the thing about these magazines...
Pitfall, Donkey Kong, Space Hawk, Demon Attack, Berserk, Defender, Communist, Mutants from Space.
A great Atari 2600 game. Now, this magazine has an interview with Moon Unit and Frank Zappa about video games. One of these magazines has an article by Isaac Asimov on the future of video games.
This looks like it has never... this looks like it came off the press this morning.
Yeah, these are all
unbelievable.
This is just an amazing warehouse find. Here's another issue. It's like, I think it's issues 1 through 4. Ninth Key, Pac-Man pattern, Robotron, Zaxxon strategy. There's a preview of this new console, the ColecoVision. There's a preview of the Atari 5200, and they're calling it System X because Atari hadn't
even announced what they were going to call it yet, and all that.
All kinds of great stuff. Well, they were debating Atari 5200, and maybe, but
this is amazing, man.
It's
It's unbelievable.
Here's another one. Tutankhamun Strategies. I don't know if you ever played Tutankhamun.
I didn't know.
Fantastic maze shooter. Just an incredible game. Yeah.
Well,
you'll have to come over and play ColecoVision sometime.
No, I'm going to. Yeah, I'm going to bring my PS4.
So you're not busy that night.
No, we'll go back. No, I'm not.
Right?
ColecoVision? Are you kidding? I got all the time in the world for that.
Cool.
So anyway, I'm going to take a bunch of pictures of
Donkey
all
Kong.
these. I'm going to put these on our website. So take a look at our website. That's all we've got time for this week, guys. So thanks a lot for watching. Once again, if you enjoy our podcast, please throw us a like or a subscribe. You can check us out and check out more information at HoldSquare.com and at BrettWeissWords.com, right?
BrettWeissWords.com, and I have a new YouTube channel where I just do different things. I put the HoldSquare podcast on there for one thing.
Right.
But thank you very much.
No problem.
I also I've started doing just videos, like I reviewed Star Fox Zero kind of a preview since it's not actually out yet.
Yeah.
And so things like that. I went to the National Video Game Museum, did a preview of that, and so just look up my name, Brett Weiss, and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you could.
Yeah, and once again, I'm Outlawcurtis on PSN. You can find me there. Please feel free to message me. You can also follow us on Twitter at HS Reapers, and you can also check out HoldSquare on Facebook. So please feel free to do all that as well. And keep an eye out for next week's podcast number 4. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. I'm also working on a very important article that I think you Reapers are especially going to like, and that's the top 5 accents that we have in the Reapers. Females and males with their accents from all... No. We've got SBB featured in it. We've got Lunatos. We've got Ruski. All these people, everyone, a lot of people watching know who they are. Very funny stuff, so we're going to be talking about that as well as all of our PlayStation and retro gaming stuff. So
I've got something really for my little show and tell feature at the end of each episode.
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
I have something truly phenomenal to show you next week.
Yeah, next week is going to be awesome. So I've already seen it, and it's going to be good. We're not gonna blow the surprise here. So anyway, guys, thanks again for watching HoldSquare Nation, and we'll see you next week.
Game on.